Yeah, I want to put this on record immediately. That was a complete and total organizational failure from top to bottom. From top to bottom. I would say that this season so far has been a complete and total organizational failure from top to bottom. I'll say that the Denver Nuggets, they have absolutely in every way, shape, and formed, and not because of and this tonight it's not even a talent thing. That's the thing that is the most damning about tonight. You can like have inferior talent and still win games. Like the Wizards beat a better, more talented team. The problem is that the Denver Nuggets philosophy is antiquated. It is not well thought out. The process behind the decisions that they made, all of it, they're still playing organizationally. This is not just Malone. Organizationally, they're still playing basketball like it was played in 2022 and 3 and not 2024 and 5. And the reason I say that is because the Denver Nuggets tonight, they got outshot from the three-point line 41-24. They got outscored 5-16. That means they were outscored by 33 points from the three-point line, and they got beat by 9 points, even though they shot 49% from the field. Very similarly, they have gotten beat by teams this year because they have organizationally not adhered to where the game is headed. You ain't got to be 45 attempts a game, but you better be around 38 to 40. And they have refused organizationally to address the schematic differences that helps you play the math game like the Wizards did tonight. That's the first part. The second and the most damning and the biggest and most important one is this organization has utterly failed Nikola Jokic. And I will say this as you never want to single a player out for bad, and you also don't want to give too much credit to a player for good stuff. You always want to try to hold in between. Because at the end of the day, my philosophy as a football player is always you have 11 men on the field and you have 11 people who contribute to a win and to a loss. In basketball, you typically have one on the team that's usually the lead, and then you have 5 guys that make it work all together, and you have bench players and you name it. But in this instance tonight, this was an organizational failure as it has been all year. The Nuggets are now 11-10 on the season. They just lost to a team that hadn't won a game since October 30th, which is over 16 games ago. They had lost 16 straight games leading into tonight. And then tonight, because the Denver Nuggets are completely disconnected defensively, the guards couldn't stay in front of anyone. They couldn't stay in front of a cold, their shadow. They couldn't guard anything from Russ to Peyton to Brown to Strother to anybody that played from 1 to 3. Michael Porter backdoor was getting beat the entire game. Anybody that stepped on the court tonight, they tried to get rest for players that needed to get rest tonight, and Murray and Gordon, and they got beat by a team that hadn't won a game since October 30th. And so the reason why this for me is all coming together is I said this already. I've said going into this season, I said going into the last couple of years, and I said even in the context of the couple of years where Murray was out, that you don't get players like Joker on your roster. You don't get players like Joker on your roster that are this good, that play this well, that do this many things, and that make you look this good when you're on the court. And the fact that the Denver Nuggets, that they have such a weak talent distribution system, that they look outclassed from an athletic standpoint versus so many teams this year, that they look, unless they're in transition, no run and all that other stuff, but in terms of connectivity, it is not there. In terms of the ball handling that you need across the board, the shot making you need, it is not there. The game has adjusted and changed, and the team has not adjusted and changed with it. And Nikola Jokic is having the best season of his career. He's having perhaps the best start of maybe any player that's existed in this sport. And yet Nikola Jokic is sitting at 11-10 because the team around him is horrifically underplaying what they should be doing right now. Unless Joker is on the court, For this season, they have been abysmal. On this season now, Joker's averaging 31.4, 13.6, 10.3, 1.7, 65 true shooting, 56, 51, 80 splits. Tonight, Joker did everything he could in scoring, including scoring 23 points in the third quarter, had 56 points, 16 rebounds, and 8 assists, led the Denver Nuggets in three-pointers as well, led the Denver Nuggets in free throws as well, led the Denver Nuggets in passing as well, led the Denver Nuggets in playmaking, led the Denver Nuggets in rebounding. Russ had 12 assists today. He could have had even more had some people hit some shots. Russ wasn't good enough offensively. Julian Strawther had decent moments, wasn't good enough offensively. Michael Porter Jr., 5 of 14, 0 of 5. Christian Brown, 14 points, 0 of 3 from 3. Not good enough. The team around him has functionally underplayed how they should be performing. And across the board, the Denver Nuggets have failed Nikola Jokic. And the thing that I want to tell people, and I want people to get through their head, and I hope the front office, if they're listening to this, your job is completely contingent around how well you navigate the circumstances of your all-time great players. The reason Pat Riley is as well-loved and adored as he is because he was able to get the Lakers. He was able to get the New York Knicks. He was able to build a competent Miami Heat team. He surrounded very elite-level talent with other elite talented players that could help them be the very best version of themselves. And this is where you get this. So I think that overall that the team and the front office and the coaching staff, everybody is accountable. And you don't get to have these kind of players on your roster and then shuffle out mediocre to mid to bad talent around them year in and year out, and then say you get to live off the credit for the fact that you have a generational player on your roster who should be winning his 4th MVP this year. Tonight was a prime example of a disconnected unit and a disconnected scheme and a disconnected vision that was executed by Calvin Booth. Hunter Tyson and Jalen Pickett guaranteed roster spots, and they have done nothing. Dario Saric, given $5 million per year with a player option, has done nothing. Zeke Naji, given $32 million over the course of a 4-year deal and a player option, doing nothing. Across the board, they have failed, fumbled, and everything in between since Bruce Brown and KCP came to this roster in 2022. Both the roster. I understood the first one. Obviously, they couldn't pay him anything close to what he got with the Pacers. I understood in some part the next one with KCP. But again, had they not signed Zeke Naji to his deal, they would have had more money to pay KCP. So this all is trickling down to the fact that since KCP and Bruce were signed by Calvin Booth, every other decision from giving Reggie Jackson a 2-year deal with a player option on the second and then getting rid of him with 3 second-round picks, every other deal that has been done since giving Jamal Murray off of his worst output in the playoffs and then worst output in the Olympics, giving him a guaranteed 4-year deal and then having him stink this year like he has. Every other thing that's been associated with the Calvin Booth tenure since that original point has failed and is in the process of failing. Sarge never should have gotten that deal. He was never a $5 million a year player. Got out of the rotation last year for the Warriors. Can't play. Zeke Naji was never, ever worth $8 million a year. Everybody looked in confusion when the deal was signed. Is not contributing to this team at all. And per Shams today, the Denver Nuggets are trying to offload Zeke Naji, and they're probably going to have to attach their only remaining available first-round pick in 2031 to get off that deal that directly falls on Calvin Booth's feet. Directly. We're in the middle of a horrendous possibility. Horrendous possibility for where they are right now. I mean, a horrendous possibility for where they are right now. There are several layers to this, several layers of possibility. The Wizards win their first game since October 30th versus a team they had lost 16 straight games. This is a direct quote from Calvin Booth. This is a direct quote from Calvin Booth in 2022. I'm going to read it to you. This is a press conference when he got the job after Tim Connolly took the job with Minnesota. He said directly from Calvin Booth, when we talk about Nikola, the MVP of the league, I'm the steward of his peak years. You want to optimize those and take advantage of those. I want to be able to help him in the way he's helped our organization and everybody in it. He says, I'm the steward of Nikola Jokic's peak years. So then I ask you, looking at the product and looking at the talent accumulation, looking at the draft picks since 2022, where are we? What's happened? Where do we go from here organizationally? The NBA.com just said that Nikola Jokic is the only player in NBA history to have 55 points, 55 plus points, 15 plus rebounds, 5 plus assists, and 3 plus threes made in a game. So Jokic had a game that's never been before seen in NBA history. Jokic is 29 years old, and this is what he's been dealt with. A non-all-star and Jamal Murray, an all-NBA player with 2 maxes on his roster. He's getting a hand that, honestly, Hakeem didn't even get. That team was very competent defensively, and they had 2 really good runs. Jokic is about to be the only all-time great that's never played with another player even close to his stratosphere. And it's sickening, and it's depressing. And today didn't even feel like, oh, Jokic is having a great game. It didn't feel anything like jubilation, joy. Every time he made a basket, it wasn't, man, this guy's incredible. Like, after the first quarter, it was like, okay, that's over. You know, after the second half, it's all right, that's over. Is someone going to help? Is someone going to assist? Who's going to step up? Your job, Christian Brown, Russell Westbrook, Michael Porter, Peyton Watson, Jalen Pickett, anybody else, y'all have to play defense, like, around this generational offensive hub. You know what your responsibility is. You couldn't stay in front of Jordan Poole. They couldn't stay in front of Champagnie, Bub Carrington. They couldn't stay in front of Butler coming off the bench, going 2 of 4 from 3. Johnny Davis, 3 of 4, 1 of 1 from 3-point line. Butler went 2 of 4 from 3. They couldn't stay in front of Gill off the bench, 2 of 3 from the field. Across the board, just a completely dominant performance for everybody on that Wizards team, because everybody that was supposed to do a job didn't do their job at all. It got to the point where it was like everybody that was watching this game that is a Nuggets fan, Nuggets supporter, they started feeling bad. Like, I think, and again, this is from relative to NBA history, what the Nuggets are asking Jokic to do is completely unfair, because nobody else has had to do this. You never had like another elite player you play with. Oh, that's very problematic. It's extremely problematic. The fact that you have his things that he's not good at: rim protection, interior defense when he has to play versus, some certain kind of coverages and all that kind of stuff, for sure. Well, obviously you want to put players in situations to be able to deal with that stuff, because that's what you do. You have a team, you build around your superstar, right? No. They have taken steps back across the board. The team couldn't score, y'all. The Jokic went out. Let me be specific about this. Jokic went out in the second, after the third quarter. It was 93-99. The Wizards were up. Jokic had 43 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, and a steal. The Nuggets had made 1 3-pointer outside of Nikola Jokic the entire game up to that point. 1. The Denver Nuggets then proceeded to go 0 of 8 at the top of the fourth quarter. They couldn't score a bucket versus the Washington Wizards. They couldn't score a bucket versus the Washington Wizards, who had lost 16 straight games, who have the worst point differential in the NBA this year per dunks and threes. They're horrible. They played a very difficult schedule, but they're horrible. They couldn't score a single bucket when Joker went out of the game. They went 0 of 8. 0 of 8. In the first half, Joker left the game. The Wizards went on a 5-0 run. Joker comes back in the game down 6. Joker cannot be the end-all, be-all for the Denver Nuggets. Joker cannot be the end-all, be-all for Michael Malone. Joker cannot be the end-all, be-all for Calvin Booth. You can't be the end-all, be-all for Josh Kroenke, Stan Kroenke. There's just no way. There's no way. You cannot be the end-all, be-all for everybody in the organization. And then when the end of the day, everybody looks at you because this is your legacy. This is Joker's legacy. This is his legacy. This is what how he'll be remembered and talked about. Everybody's going to rip Joker historically if he only wins one ring. Now, people have the context like, oh, the organization was just complete trash, complete failure from the organization across the board. Go to your place. Go. 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 It can't be the end all be all. But we're in a situation now where everybody's looking at Joker and saying, Joker, you're not getting the job done. And it's like, if anybody is in a situation where they're able to just be honest about the situation around him, this is the worst situation for a superstar of this caliber that we have ever seen. I mean, they had the formula. It was there. Yep. There we go. Missing free throws. Yep. Jokic missed free throws today. Blame him. Joker missed bunnies today in the third quarter. Blame him. Yep. I told y'all. I said it was coming. I said it was coming. I said it was coming, y'all. Yep. I said it was coming. That's what I'm telling y'all. Like this is how you know, like casuals, this is how casuals talk about basketball. It's Joker wasn't good enough to do this and that. Joker wasn't good enough to do this and that. Therefore, he was in these tiny parts of the game. He didn't do this and that. And it's like, okay, cool. That's Calvin Booth. This is what happens when you don't give people adequate talent around them. Again, Joker was diming. I'm talking about had wide open looks to Strother, clank. Wide open looks to Brown, clank. Wide open looks to MPJ, clank. Wide open looks to all these people. Yeah, cool. That's just the way it works. That's the way it works historically. Jordan didn't get the job done. He scored 63 versus the Celtics and then was cheeks in the rest of in the late stretches of that series. But Jordan won 6 rings, so you forget about it. That's the way it happens. That's the way the narratives work. So this is why I think it's imperative for the Denver Nuggets to do what they got to do, to step in. And Calvin Booth, you have a job to do. This is a job-saving stretch for you. Like, I think it's done. It's over. It's like this is cooked. Like Malone's on the table at the end of the year if they disappoint. Calvin Booth, you're already on the table. If I'm Josh Kroenke, I'm saying that I love basketball. He knows basketball. He knows basketball. And again, the Pistons, they just beat. The Pistons just beat the Knicks. So obviously in the NBA, you have these moments. You have these moments where teams have whatever, but that's different. The Wizards are way worse than any of these teams. And you're sitting here telling me that you can't come away with the win versus the Wizards team missing a good bit of his rotation even without Jamal and Gordon. Jake Shapiro, shout out Jake, quote from Malone, I'm doing a really poor job with this team. For us to be 11-10 at this point and losing to a team that the last 5 games is averaging 100 points a game and they put up 122 on us, he said, and I'm embarrassed by that. Malone said, we have film sessions where you hold guys accountable, you address the issues, and they keep being repeated. That's where I take the blame for 11-10. I've done a poor job as a coach preparing this team to win and go out there and execute, and I have no problem owning that. And I think that's the thing. Unfortunately, uh, there's a possibility. There's a possibility that there's a possibility, man, that Malone's going to be on the table for all this, and it sucks because you look at this, and you look at the situation, you know, it's just not a winnable situation. Like I really truly believe Malone is doing everything he can to salvage this, but I think the team knows, the team feels it. Everybody saw. Everybody saw. Uh, Jamal Murray had that moment versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, in which he just didn't come back to the huddle. I don't know the circumstances around that, but it didn't look good. Optically, whatever the situation, it didn't look good. And so the team is at its low. It's really at its low right now. And I think this is a really tough situation for everybody to be in because this is just where it is, man. Like the team obviously knows that they have expectations about it. And I think that Josh Kroenke, Stan Kroenke, Calvin Booth, everybody that's at the top of the organization, they know where they are. They know where they are. And Jamal Murray, just in particular, has taken a massive step back as a player, hasn't gotten better like he was supposed to. Again, that's an L. And he's on the contract. It's a complete L. Michael Porter Jr., I think, is a really good player at times, and today he was just folded. Usually plays well with it. It's just him and Jokic. Just folded. They just don't have, like, tonight, at least tonight. They just did not have the fight, the connectivity, and everything else that you need in order to do what you need to do. Yeah, it's just silly. Like, I think that at some point in time, I think at some point in time, they're going to have to get to a point where they're willing to make the necessary, real critical adjustments to the scheme, to the philosophy, and to the roster that a player like Nikola Jokic demand. Because what you're doing now is not enough. It's not working. And asking him to be the only abnormality in NBA history to be in this situation is continue to look ridiculous. And he's 29 years old. He'll be 30 in 2 months. And yet the team, as it is constructed with Jamal Murray not being what it's going to be, it just doesn't make any sense. There is a situation, I think, now where, it's just unfortunate. The Nuggets, they can play at the best team in the NBA, basically, when Jokic is on the court with the starters for the entirety of the year. They can beat really good teams, and then they can also lose to the worst team in the league, which is the Wizards right now. And you don't love that that's where the team is oscillating between at this point in time and where they are. Murray's 27. Jokic is 29. Porter's 26. Gordon is 29. Like, this shouldn't be the way things are working for the team, for the roster. It shouldn't be here at this point. But because of, I think, very, very, very antiquated thinking by the decision makers with this roster, and players also not stepping up to do their job, this is where we are. And again, when you have historically great players, you got to do everything you possibly can to make life as easy as possible for them. And the Nuggets are doing whatever they can to make it as hard as possible. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I think that the team is just going to have to make some really tough decisions, man. Like, it sucks. It really sucks. And I think that everybody really would want this team in Denver to be better and do a better job. But this is just where we are. I think at some point in time, this is just where you have to own up to the truth and own up to where things have gotten and, do what they have to do in order to get better. But yeah, it sucks. I think yeah, I think it's just, there's no, like, there's no answers for it, and I think I think people are trying to like come to different terms with how you're supposed to do this, and that. And I do think like 1000%. Yeah, they're gonna have to figure some stuff out. And we'll see what they do. But yeah, we'll see what they do. But this is gonna be, I think this is a true like gut check time for everybody in the organization. Because again, tonight's not just like a game. Like I think this is a emblematic of a large scale problem. And again, every single game, basically, they're getting outscored from the 3-point line. Like that's a problem. Mathematically doesn't make any sense. Like you're playing in a new era where the pace and space in the 3-point shot is more valuable than ever. And you're shooting really well. And that's fine. Like you're converting on your 3-pointers for the most part. That's cool. But if you're shooting league minimum attempts and the other team is taking 40, if you're taking 22 attempts and the other team's taking 40, just some math, that's why you lost. You lost because you lost the 3-point battle significantly. I mean, that's where this is. This is where the game is. That's why teams and these numbers are so inflated. Like, and player value is really is skewed across the board because you can have like the all-time great player in the middle doing everything and hitting threes. But the problem is if the team collectively is not playing the math game around said player consistently, then you're going to run into a Wizard team that just blows you out of the gym because the 3-point shooting is where it is. So mathematically, it just doesn't make any real sense. Doesn't make any real sense. The perimeter defense was horrible tonight, and they couldn't convert looks. So that's what it is, man. It's nasty. It's ugly. It's terrible. And again, this is an organizational failure. I think this is from Stan to Josh Kroenke. This is to Calvin Booth. This is to Michael Malone. Everybody around him. This is everybody. You are failing the generational talent you have, despite whatever he did tonight. No matter how much he tried to find people on the outlet pass, on the corner, they weren't converting anything. And again, you have an antiquated process, I think a bad process and an approach to the way you're playing basketball, and then a talent deficit that is extremely clear. And then they also look very disconnected, like losing everybody everywhere. So really unfortunate, y'all, but this is where we are. This is what they signed up for. So we'll see what happens. Tomorrow they play Atlanta Hawks. I will be at the game live here in Atlanta. So I will have a post-game show after that. We'll see how they show up tomorrow, how they come out. We'll see who shows up to play. If Murray or Gordon are going to be healthy, we'll find out. The Swipa gang, y'all know what time it is. Y'all my folks. See y'all on the other side.